October 4th, 1964, East Berlin. A border guard stops walking. 12 meters below his boots, two men lie frozen in cold mud, holding their breath. One cough, one scrape of metal, and they're dead. Above them, machine guns, attack dogs, and tripwire mines designed to shred anyone who moves. But here's what the guard doesn't know. These aren't commandos. They're not spies. They're students armed with a shovel and a borrowed revolver. For 6 months, they've been clawing through 90 tons of Berlin clay to build a 145-meter tunnel beneath the deadliest border on Earth. The goal? Smuggle 57 people to freedom, including one man's girlfriend, who the Stasi just released from prison as bait. But someone in their crew has been feeding information to East German intelligence. The Stasi knows exactly where the tunnel ends. And on the night of the escape, someone will die in the crossfire. Who betrayed the diggers from inside? And how did two students outsmart the Stasi? August 13th, 1961. East German soldiers work through the darkness, unspooling barbed wire across Berlin's midsection while 2.5 million people sleep. By dawn, those 2.5 million wake to discover they're prisoners. Families living on Bernauer Strasse find that an invisible line now runs through their apartment buildings, the ground floor in the east, the sidewalk in the west. A mother named Ida Siekmann lowers her infant from a third-floor window to West Berlin firefighters holding a rescue net. Within 72 hours, soldiers brick up every window facing west. Some residents jump before the mortar dries. Others are caught mid-leap and dragged back inside to face interrogation. The barrier hardens with terrifying speed. Concrete walls replace barbed wire. Guard towers rise at 250-meter intervals, each manned by pairs of soldiers with standing orders to shoot anyone who approaches. Patrol boats drag hooks through the River Spree to snag swimmers in the dark. Spring gun traps are buried in the sand, rigged to fire horizontally at anyone who triggers a tripwire. In the first year, at least 12 people die trying to cross. In August 1962, an 18-year-old bricklayer named Peter Fechter is shot while climbing the wall. He bleeds to death in the death strip over the course of an hour, while East German guards watch and Western crowds scream helplessly from the other side. His photograph appears in newspapers around the world. For those trapped in the East, a phrase spreads like a virus: the wall is forever. Joachim Neumann is a 21-year-old civil engineering student in Cottbus, 125 kilometers southeast of Berlin, when the wall goes up. He watches his future collapse overnight, the career that would never advance under communist quotas, the freedom to travel, the girl he planned to marry. Her name is Christa Gruhl. By December 1961, Joachim can't wait any longer. He borrows a Swiss student's passport, practices the accent in front of a mirror for 3 days, and walks up to Checkpoint Charlie with his heart pounding against his ribs. The guard flips through the pages, studies his face, compares it to the photograph, hesitates, then waves him through. Joachim crosses into West Berlin with nothing but the clothes on his back and a teddy bear Christa gave him stuffed into his coat pocket. He never told her he was leaving. He thought she'd never wait for him. 300 kilometers north, Hubert Holbein faces a different wall, the invisible one that blocks his future. Communist bureaucrats have classified his family as bourgeois enemies because his grandfather once owned a textile shop. The verdict: no university for Hubert. His ceiling is a factory floor. On November 21st, 1963, Hubert pulls on a diving suit he stitched together from raincoats and bicycle inner tubes. At 11:14 p.m., he slips into Lake Jungfernsee. The water is at 1 degree Celsius. For 90 minutes, he swims through total darkness, surfacing only to check his direction against the lights of the Glienicke Bridge. His muscles seize, his lips turn blue. When he finally crawls onto the western shore, West German police wrap him in thermal blankets and rush him to a hospital. He's escaped, but his mother has not. By early 1964, Joachim and Hubert find each other in West Berlin. Both are engineering students now. Both left people behind. Over beer in a cramped dormitory, they share a realization: no one is coming to save their families. The wall is getting deadlier by the month. Minefields, motion sensors, even dogs trained to kill. If they want their loved ones free, they'll have to do it themselves. Joachim spreads a hand-drawn map across the table. His finger traces the death strip until it stops at Bernauer Strasse. Here, the wall slices through abandoned buildings, leaving empty cellars within meters of the frontier. The buildings have been evacuated, their residents forced deeper into the east. What remains are basements no one is watching. Joachim looks at Hubert. They can't go over or around, so they'll have to go under. What neither of them knows is that they're about to spend 6 months underground, and that someone in their crew is reporting every meter of progress directly to the Stasi. Who betrayed them? How did the secret police know exactly where to strike? And why did Joachim's girlfriend end up in an East German prison just weeks after he started digging? April 1964. Joachim and Hubert pry open a padlock on an abandoned bakery at 97 Bernauer Strasse. Inside, shattered windows, rotting floorboards, the stench of mildew and rat droppings. Pigeons scatter from the rafters at the sound of their footsteps. Perfect. No one has entered this building in years. No one except the rats and the ghosts. In the basement, they kick aside a moldy rug crusted with years of flour dust and find cracked concrete beneath. They mark a rectangle in chalk. They raise their pickaxes, and they swing. The plan is simple to explain and brutal to execute. Dig a vertical shaft 12 meters straight down, deep enough to pass beneath the water table and the Stasi's buried listening devices. Then, tunnel horizontally for 145 meters, the length of 1.5 football fields, beneath the wall, the signal fence, and the death strip. Surface inside a courtyard at 55 Strelitzer Strasse in East Berlin. Extract their families. Vanish. They work in 12-hour shifts, sleeping in the bakery's upper floors on rotting mattresses, eating bread and sausage when they remember to eat at all. One man digs. One man hauls dirt in buckets up a wooden ladder that groans with every step. Their progress is 10 centimeters per shovelful. Their palms blister on day 1. The blisters tear on day 2. Calluses form by day 5, then crack and bleed by day 7. By day 10, permanent muscle spasms set in, knots of fire that never fully release. But every chunk of clay removed is one step closer to Christa, one step closer to Hubert's mother, one step closer to everyone they abandoned. Then comes the dirt problem. They're not just digging a tunnel, they're excavating roughly 90 tons of Berlin clay. That's enough soil to fill 3 freight train cars, and they can't pile it outside without alerting every Stasi informant in the neighborhood. Their solution is to stuff the dirt into flour sacks scavenged from the bakery's storage rooms, stack them against the cellar walls like sandbags, camouflage the mounds behind rotting furniture and broken shelving. When the cellar fills to the ceiling, they sneak out at 3 a.m. and scatter soil in bomb craters left over from the war, in construction sites across West Berlin, in public flower beds where no one will notice fresh earth. Within 3 weeks, both men are coated in permanent gray-brown grime. Their clothes stiffen with dried sweat and clay. They stop washing, there's no time, and besides, they've stopped noticing the smell. 6 meters down, the candle flames start to tremble. Oxygen is thinning in the shaft. Hubert's vision blurs. Black spots swim across his eyes. He climbs the ladder and vomits in a corner of the cellar. They rig a crude ventilation system, an old bicycle pump connected to 30 meters of rubber hose. One man pumps furiously, 200 strokes per hour, while the other gasps for thin puffs of Berlin air in the darkness below. Day 30, Hubert's shovel strikes something that shouldn't exist. A hollow crack, then a roar. He's punctured a 19th century sewer pipe, forgotten for decades beneath the surface. Within seconds, frigid water floods the tunnel to his waist. The clay walls liquefy into orange slurry. The ceiling groans. Hubert scrambles backward, clawing at timber supports as the passage collapses behind him. Up at street level, Joachim feels the hauling rope go slack. He calls down the shaft. No answer, just the sound of their work drowning. They salvage what they can. 20 meters of progress, buried. 3 weeks of labor, gone. For the first time, they consider quitting. Then Joachim notices something half buried in the rubble. A small teddy bear, matted with mud. Christa gave it to him years ago. He'd forgotten he'd stuffed it in his bag the night he fled. He brushes the dirt from its glass eyes. They drain the tunnel. They reinforce the collapse. They curve their route south to bypass the ruptured pipe. It costs them 8 days. Then they're digging again. If you want to see how this ends, whether they break through, whether the Stasi catches them, whether Joachim ever sees Krista again, hit subscribe. Because the tunnel is about to become a crime scene. By month 2, Joachim's hair has turned gray at the temples. He's 23 years old. Hubert has lost 15 pounds. Their crew has grown to 35, all university students sworn to secrecy. One of them, a physics major named Reinhard Furrer, will later become an astronaut. Right now, he's lying on his back in 80 centimeters of tunnel, pushing dirt with his feet. What happens when the Stasi starts listening? And which of the 35 diggers is already talking? Summer 1964. The tunnel passes the 70-meter mark, halfway, but the operation is hemorrhaging money. Tools break, timber rots, flashlight batteries die by the dozen. Joachim and Hubert have pawned everything they own. They're surviving on bread and sausage scraps. The budget is down to pennies. Then, Stern magazine makes them an offer. The West German news outlet will provide funding in exchange for exclusive photographs. The West German government quietly contributes 30,000 Deutschmarks through its Ministry of Intra-German Relations. Suddenly they have better tools, more timber, even a small mining cart on wooden rails. They also have a problem. More people know the secret. And the Stasi has informants everywhere in West Berlin. Refugees who never really defected, students on payroll, even lovers turned into spies. The Stasi knows something is happening on Bernauer Strasse. They just don't know where. Chief Erich Mielke has ordered specialized anti-tunnel units to plant geophones along the eastern border. Sensitive listening devices that can detect digging sounds through 10 meters of packed earth. The moment a shovel scrapes clay, a needle jumps on a monitoring station 50 meters away. The diggers don't know about the geophones. They know only that they must be silent. Before each session, they press their ears to the tunnel walls and listen for 60 seconds. No voices, machinery, or footsteps. Then they dig, each stroke a gamble. One August night, they hear something that stops their hearts, a faint thud-thud scrape from somewhere ahead. Someone else is digging and moving toward them. The Stasi has used this tactic before, boring counter-tunnels to intercept escape routes mid-passage. The diggers kill their lantern and sit frozen in blackness. 5 minutes, 10, 15. The sound doesn't return. Was it sewer workers, Stasi engineers, or something worse? Someone in their own ranks who told the secret police exactly where to dig. From that night forward, trust dissolves. Friends start watching friends. Joachim catches himself studying a newer volunteer, a philosophy student who asks too many questions about the tunnel's endpoint. Why does he need to know the exit location? Why did he step outside twice during last night's shift? Paranoia spreads like mold in the damp. Then comes the tip that nearly ends everything. An Italian volunteer pulls Joachim aside. He's overheard a rumor in a West Berlin cafe. Someone in the digging crew is feeding information to the Stasi. He doesn't know who. Just that the words Bernauer Strasse were mentioned in a context that made his blood freeze. The crew convenes by candlelight. They have two options: abandon the tunnel and everyone counting on it, or press forward knowing a traitor might be sitting among them at this very moment. They choose forward. Joachim starts sleeping with a revolver under his pillow. September 14th, 1964. Past midnight. Joachim checks his compass against distance markings scratched into the tunnel's timber supports. By his calculations, they've crossed beneath the wall itself. They are now directly under the death strip, the floodlit killing field where armed guards patrol 10 meters above their heads. From this point on, every digger chambers a round in their pistol. The Stasi knows a tunnel exists. The diggers know they have a traitor. Both sides are racing toward the same patch of earth. But what's waiting for them on the other side? And when will the traitor finally show his face? 12 meters underground, Joachim's pencil marks confirm their position. They are tunneling directly beneath soldiers with automatic rifles, dogs trained to rip out throats, and SM-70 fragmentation mines triggered by tripwires. Every footstep on the surface sends cascades of sand onto their faces. They switch to digging only during cover noise, passing trains, gusting wind, rumbling trucks. Even then, each scrape of the shovel sounds deafening. October 3rd, 1964. Breakthrough day. Just before dawn, Joachim positions a crowbar against the tunnel ceiling. Above that thin layer of earth is East Berlin, a country he fled 3 years ago. A country that will execute him if he's caught. He pushes and crack. Packed soil rains onto his face. He pushes again. A chunk of rotted wood falls through. They've struck a man-made structure. Hubert reaches up. His fingers find open air. They've surfaced inside an abandoned outhouse in the rear courtyard of 55 Strelitzer Strasse, exactly where Joachim aimed 6 months ago. The navigation was flawless. Joachim pulls himself into the cramped wooden shed, pistol drawn. Dead leaves crunch beneath his boots. He eases the door open and scans the courtyard. Dark windows, no guards. He whistles the all clear. Over the previous weeks, couriers carried coded messages into East Berlin. Come to Strelitzer Strasse 55 at midnight. Whisper the password Tokyo. Help will be there. Now Joachim waits, revolver at his hip, as the first refugee appears. A university friend, shaking so badly she can barely speak. He guides her to the hole. She drops into darkness and begins the 145-meter crawl west. Over 2 nights, 57 people pass through that courtyard. Husbands reuniting with wives they haven't touched in 3 years. Parents sobbing into children's hair, memorizing the scent they'd almost forgotten. Brothers who'd given up hope of ever seeing each other again. A 75-year-old woman so frail that her grandsons must carry her across the yard and lower her into the shaft, like she's made of glass. Hubert crawls beside her through every meter of the passage, 145 meters of mud and darkness, whispering encouragement as her arthritic fingers claw through clay that soaks her house dress and cakes her silver hair. The journey takes her 45 minutes. When she finally emerges on the western side, a photographer from Stern magazine captures her face, blinking against the flashbulb, tears cutting channels through the dirt, free for the first time in 3 years. That photograph will appear in newspapers across the world. The caption won't mention that she'd been carried through the tunnel by a 23-year-old stranger who'd never met her before that night. Then, on the second night, something changes. 2 young men approach the outhouse. They claim they got the message. They seem calm, too calm. No trembling hands, no tear-streaked faces. One says he needs to fetch a friend around the corner and slips toward the street. Joachim's blood turns to ice. Those weren't refugees. They were Stasi officers. Someone on the escapee list was an informant. The secret police have known about the tunnel. They just waited to maximize the haul. Joachim hisses down the shaft. "Stasi, run!" The last refugees still underground scramble forward on bleeding knees. 2 border guards charge into the courtyard, Kalashnikovs raised with shouting orders. Joachim fires twice. One guard, a 24-year-old sergeant named Egon Schultz, cries out and crumples, hit in the shoulder. The second guard returns fire. Muzzle flash strobes the darkness. In the chaos, Schultz is struck again, this time by his own comrade's bullet in the crossfire. Joachim doesn't wait to see who shot whom. He dives into the tunnel. The last diggers collapse the entrance behind them, burying the passage under cascading soil. Minutes later, Joachim emerges on the western side, gasping, caked head to toe in mud, ears still ringing from the gunfire. In the bakery basement, 57 escaped East Germans, pressed together in the dim light, husbands clutching wives, parents sobbing into children's hair, friends embracing for the first time since the wall went up. The air smells of sweat and clay and tears. Hubert finds his mother wrapped in a wool blanket near the stairs, her eyes red, her hands shaking. She falls into his arms without a word. She's 58 years old. She hasn't seen her son in 11 months. She will never go back. Joachim scans the crowd, heart pounding. He checks every face, every corner of the basement. Then he sees her, Krista, standing alone near the furnace, shivering, covered in clay from her hair to her ankles, alive. She'd been released from an East German prison just 48 hours earlier. For 18 months, the Stasi had interrogated her about Joachim's escape attempts, locked her in cells, denied her sleep, and threatened her family. They released her in September 1964, possibly as bait, possibly as a bureaucratic accident. When the coded message arrived, Strelitzer Strasse 55, midnight, whisper Tokyo. She knew what it meant. She knew the risk, and she came anyway. Now they lock eyes across the crowded basement, 10 meters apart. For a long moment, neither moves. Then they rush together and cling to each other, her face buried in his muddy shoulder, his arms wrapped so tight around her that she can barely breathe. Tears cut channels through the grime on their faces. She whispers something he can't hear over the chaos. He whispers back, "I came for you." But who really killed the border guard that night? And will the truth ever come out? By dawn on October 5th, East German authorities discover the tunnel entrance in the outhouse at Strelitzer Strasse too late. 57 people have vanished from beneath their boots. The regime erupts in propaganda. Radio East Berlin declares that Western terrorists and fascist provocateurs murdered border guard Egon Schultz in cold blood. They parade his coffin through the streets of East Berlin, draped in the GDR flag, while state-controlled newspapers demand justice for this hero of socialism. But the regime is lying. Ballistics analysis, hidden in Stasi files for 25 years and revealed only after the wall fell, will eventually prove that Schultz was killed by friendly fire. His own comrade's bullet struck him in the panicked crossfire of the courtyard, while both guards were shooting wildly at shadows. The tunnelers didn't know this at the time. They heard only that a young man was dead, and the weight of it settled on their shoulders like stone. So they launched their own counterattack, the only weapon they had left. They filled helium balloons with leaflets and floated them over the wall into East Berlin. The notes drifted down on sidewalks, rooftops, and public squares, carrying a message the regime couldn't censor. The real murderer is the system that built the wall and ordered Germans to shoot Germans. Joachim marries Christa within the year. They raise children who will never know what it feels like to be caged. Hubert completes his engineering degree, the education East Germany denied him for having the wrong grandfather. Reinhard Führer finishes his physics studies and eventually flies aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger, becoming the second German in space. In a twist of irony, Joachim later works as a consulting engineer on the Channel Tunnel between England and France, boring passages not to escape tyranny, but to connect free peoples. Both men carry invisible scars for the rest of their lives. Sleepless nights, flashes of paranoia in crowds, the permanent vigilance that comes from spending 6 months listening for footsteps overhead. But they also carry proof that 2 students with shovels changed 57 lives forever. Tunnel 57 remains the single most successful escape tunnel of the Berlin Wall era. Those 57 refugees represent nearly 1/5 of everyone who ever escaped through tunnels during the wall's 28 years. In the end, the Stasi never identified the traitor in the diggers' ranks, or if they did, the files were destroyed. What they couldn't destroy was the lesson. Walls are built by governments, but walls can be broken by anyone stubborn enough to keep digging. On November 9th, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell to sledgehammers and joyful crowds. Joachim and Hubert, gray-haired now, watched history vindicate the audacity of their youth. Their tunnel had long since been filled in, erased from the landscape, forgotten by everyone except the 57 people it saved. But its lesson endured. The deadliest border on Earth couldn't hold back 2 kids with a shovel. If you want to see what happens when an even more desperate group tries to escape from the worst places on Earth, watch how this man escaped Auschwitz using a Nazi uniform, and the ending will stay with you for days.